You must know the highest form of knowledge and the greatest achievement, and to be able to develop the ability of inventiveness, the ability of innovation, and the ability of creativity. And these two knowledge and three capabilities are the only things that we need to change our lives and to change the course of human history for the better, or for the collective good of all existence. You must know the highest form of knowledge and the greatest achievement, and to be able to develop the ability of inventiveness, the ability of innovation, and the ability of creativity. And these two knowledge and three capabilities are the only things that we need to change our lives and to change the course of human history for the better, or for the collective good of all existence. We are in this world, and that is to contribute our specialness to make this world a better place. And it's a privilege and a wonderful experience to embark on this journey with you all. Someday our time will be set, our days on earth will be over, and we are going to exit this dimension of reality and then go to a different dimension, or probably others may have to reincarnate back to this dimension simply because they refuse to live up to their call and their purpose. It's my single prayer that at the time of our exit, we would be able to exit as enlightened soul, not as ignorant soul. We would be able to exit as an awakened soul that is enlightened, not a soul fascinated with the knowledge of awakening and consciousness. Because I noticed that a lot of people are fascinated with this whole awakening and consciousness wind which is blowing, but they are not making the necessary effort, and also they are not getting in touch with the right people who will give them the actual awakening, and possibly that will lead them to enlightenment. So I observe and see that a lot of people are just fascinated about this whole awakening movement thing. A lot of people too, I notice and see that they have misconstrued and misconcepted this whole awakening thing to going back for our traditional mystic way of life. But this true awakening of the human faculties is beyond sankofa of the traditional way of life. Because in the traditional way of life, there lies no true awakening and conscious enlightenment, or the enlightenment of our consciousness. If there is, I don't think the kind of things that our great-grandfathers went through would have been possible, because an awakened mind can never be deceived. So once the other people were able to find ways and means to let them do away with what they have in order to be able to enslave them, only points to one fact, and one fact only, and that is that they were not enlightened. They may have some level of knowledge, but that level of knowledge is not so profound to be competitive to that of the slave masters. And that is why the slave masters were able to penetrate through their space and then convince them to do away with what they have, just to be able to colonize and to control our ancestors. But time has elapsed, times have changed, and as I've told you always, our universe goes through different phases of evolution. And one of them is the dark age, where people look to these traditional elementary powers to kind of be able to live safe in that dark environment. Because in those age and time, there's no civilization, so people were living in thatch houses, caves, and exposed to wild animals and exposed to very dan- dangerous species of animal, and they were surrounded by a lot of peril situation. And the situation as at the time demanded that they should have certain magical abilities to be able to contend and survive. And that gave birth to those traditional elemental energies that our great great grandfathers applied. Then came the electrical age. Then, after the electrical age, came the mental age. And now we are in the golden age, came the Aquarius age, and now basically we are in the golden age. So in the golden age, all the knowledge of the dark age, the electrical age, the mental age is irrelevant. It only gives us where we come from, how far we have come, but it cannot survive and do anything really, really meaningful in the golden age. And that is why when I see people talk about Sankofa, back to our old traditions, I feel that they've not gotten the full scope and they don't have an in-depth knowledge of the evolution of the universe. Because the universe is not static or stagnant. The universe is consciousness, and consciousness is ever expanding and ever evolving and ever unfolding. It's never been the same thing. That is why even yesterday was different from today, and tomorrow will be different from today. So the life as we live is ever unfolding and evolving towards higher frequencies, depending on the distance between the Earth center of gravity and the sun's energy. That determines amount of intelligences that is being emitted to our Earth space. The further the sun is from the center of the Earth magnetic field, the less intelligent people are, and the more closer the sun is to the center of the Earth magnetic field, the more intelligent people to become. So all those traditional knowledge in those days were relevant because the sun was further away from the center of the Earth magnetic field, and that was the knowledge you could access as at the time. Now, in our age and time, the sun has drew much more closer to the center of our Earth magnetic field, so knowledge has abound. That's why when we read the Bible, it said, in the last days, on the latter days, knowledge shall abound. And when knowledge abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And you can see evidently that as knowledge abound, people's affection and emotions are waxing cold. And that people now don't have no affection and empathy for situations that under normal circumstance would have draw people's empathy. Now, people get into accident and people will be looking on unconcerned. People have situations and people will draw. They are encountered with life-threatening situation, and people, the first thing to do is to draw their mobile phones and then start making TikTok and Snapchat or whatever you call it, to show to the world what is happening to somebody at the peril of the person's life. So as knowledge abound, as the Bible prophesied, the love of many is waxing cold. Now people really don't care about neighbors, people don't care about family, people don't care about friends. Somebody can go to a date with a friend and this one is there chatting and this one is just chatting. Though you are there together to be on a date, they are chatting with somebody outside. You can see somebody with his wife or husband in the house. They are both chatting with somebody outside. So as knowledge abound, the love of many is waxing cold. So that affinity, that empathy, that emotional feeling is dying off gradually. So if if Bible prophesied that, it is really, really true in our time and age. Now you go to hospitals and the kind of attention the nurses used to give back in the days, and the kind of attention the doctors used to give back in the days. Now you go to hospital and the doctors, whilst you're sitting down at the OPD waiting to be attended to, the nurse will be sitting there chatting and making TikTok or making YouTube or whatever it is and smiling. The time they are attending to you, that's why they make wrong prescriptions and do all sort of things. Because the love for humanity, or the love of humanity, is waxing cold as knowledge abounds and knowledge expands. So that is why in our age and time, certain knowledge, when they ask you to go and pursue, is total waste of time. Because we've gone past certain knowledge. A lot of religious belief we are practicing right now, we've gone past a lot of religious belief. Excuse me to say, there are a lot of Hinduic practice, there are a lot of Buddhist practice that our age has gone past that age. There are a lot of mantras that was given some years back that in our time, these mantras don't work no more, because we are now in the diamond light age. And in this age of the diamond light, some of these mantras have outlived their vibration, and they are powerless. But yet, a lot of religions are holding on to it, and they are still using and chanting these mantras. But in this age of intelligence and knowledge, and as we capture the golden age, we are operating within the diamond light radiation, which is the highest vibrational frequency of energy which is being exerted on our planet and our space. And it comes with its own bunch of regulations and activities and mantras and all those things. So this is the age in which we are the highest vibration, the highest energy in our planet space. So yes, so and you understand some of these things when you engage in some of these diamond light meditation exercises and all those things. These are exercises that are there. These are meditation exercises that are there. That has its own mantras that we use to do all those meditation exercises. Then when you are in that space meditating on diamond light energy, that is the only time you understand what is happening in our world, because it is that energy that harnesses the frequency to give you the intelligence to be able to comprehend what is happening in our space. So sometimes when we talk about 2030, what this is going to happen, this is going to happen. We talk about this is going to happen, this is going to happen. We talk about this is going to happen, this is going to happen. People think it's for a joke, but that is the reality of it, because that is the intelligence you are operating in as at this time. So we need to really, really update ourselves and get ourselves acquainted with time, so we can be able to liberate our souls and our consciousness. Not to forget the fact that we are in the golden age, and then people are talking about archons, people are talking about Anunnakis, people are talking about Enki, and all these things are they are mythologies. Nobody even can prove them as we are now, until you can go inside and then find out that these things really existed. But these are antique stories or mythologies that, like, not Enki and all those is alone. We have the Greek classical mythology that talked about Athena, talked about Zeus, talked about Hercules and all those things. Why would you be in this golden age and be thinking of Hercules and Zeus and all those things? That shows you how retrogressive we are as a continent. My son, who is about 8 years, was asking me how possible that in our age and time people still believe in mythical creatures. And I was like, how did you get to know about mythical creatures? But he was asking me, he said, doesn't understand that now people talk, you sometimes watch television and people are talking about creatures, certain creatures that exist, but these creatures are mythical creatures, creatures which are being learned from myth. And nobody knows whether myth is true or not. So it beats his imagination why people talk about mythical creatures as if there's something that really, really existed, or they know that it is true, like they were there in time when those things were happening. And this is how we are living our lives, okay? And I don't blame people, because Bible says that at the end times, people will develop itchy ears and they want to hear strange things. So Bible has talked about all these things, that at the end time, the times of the golden age, people will develop itchy ears. That which will save them, that will give them liberation, they will not pay attention to. But they would prefer to hear things that are itchy, things that are mysterious, things that are strange. And that is some of the signs of the collapsing of the golden age. Understand? And as we live, the golden age is about to collapse. And that is why now human beings are literally creating a model of its kind called the humanoids, as I said in our previous session. So we are in no joke time. We are in serious times, and we must understand the era in which we are. Otherwise, it may be too late. So today we are continuing with our previous streaming that we did on the treasures of gifts that divinity bestows on humanity, and why humanity is unable to access this treasure of gifts. And we talk about the fact that humanity, and we read a few scriptures like the book of Genesis 1:26, read Genesis 2:7, read 1 John chapter 4 verse 4, read about Matthew chapter 25 verse 14 down to 30, read about the book of Daniel as well, Daniel chapter 1, all pointing to the fact that there is potential in man. And we talk about the fact that we have to have 2 forms of knowledge and 3 forms of potential to be able to change the course of human history or to make your life better. And that is that you must know the highest form of knowledge and the greatest achievement, and to be able to develop the ability of inventiveness, the ability of innovation, and the ability of creativity. And these 2 is the only these 2 knowledge and 3 capabilities are the only things that we need to change our lives and to change the course of human history for the better, or for the collective good of all existence. We also talk about the fact that there's some kind of greatness inside of us, and then we need to develop and harness this greatness inside of us. And that is the highest form of knowledge that you can ever pursue. And the highest form of knowledge is that there is greatness embedded in man. That's the highest form of knowledge. There's no knowledge greater than that. For you to come to know that there is greatness within you is the highest form of learning. And the greatest achievement you can ever achieve in this life is to be able to unleash this greatness which is inside of you. Asa, this is the whole duty and purpose of man on earth. You came with latent abilities. You came with sublime greatness which is embedded within yourself, and you must be remembered that that greatness is there. And you must know that that greatness is there. And the greatest achievement on earth is not to go to space or to go to the marine world. The greatest achievement is not to invent aeroplane. The greatest achievement is to unleash this power inside of you. That is the greatest achievement in life, because in the unleashment of this power embedded inside of you lies all abilities of creativity, lies all abilities of innovation, and lies all abilities of invention that you could ever think of in this lifetime and in the multiple lifetimes to come. Everything is embedded in the greatness which is embedded within you. Everything. The plane you are seeing was once an idea within the capability embedded within the Wright brothers. The light you're seeing today was a greatness which is embedded in somebody we call Thomas Alva Edison. All these nanotechnologies you are seeing was once a theory embedded as greatness in a man called Albert Einstein. All this theory, the law of gravitational energy, which is the universal magnetic field of our space, was once embedded in somebody we call Sir Isaac Newton. Everything you so ever see in this lifetime, which is not of the divine, but it's created by man, was once a greatness embedded, lying latent, waiting to be explored in somebody. And what makes the difference is the person relearning to understand and to know that there is something deep within himself. And that thing is his or her greatness. And the second aspect of it is for the person to go through all necessary available mentorship to be able to unleash this greatness into manifestation for the benefit of himself and collectively for all humanity. There's nothing on it. The essence of why we go to school has to be for this reason. But unfortunately, the schools shift us away from this purpose. The schools or educational establishment that has to help us identify that greatness which is embedded within us that we came to this world with, and the same educational institutions that has to help us unleash or unravel this greatness which is suppressed and latent within us. Rather, this educational institution keep us away from ourselves so that we cannot be able to discover our greatness and to unravel and to release this greatness. Because all these schools were not set up to help us. All these schools were set up to program us to think the way somebody else wants us to think, to behave the way somebody else wants us to behave, so that we can fit squarely as round pearls in their round holes. So we don't become round pearls in square holes. In order for us to become round pearls to fit into their round holes, they have to moderate us and mentor us to mold us into round pearls. After which they give us what you call accreditation. Why would you go to school and they'll give you accreditation? They'll give accreditation. Who is accrediting you? Are we not all human beings in this world? So who has to accredit who that who is a professional? So this is the world we find ourselves. And there's so much greatness inside of us that this, as you read in the Living Bible, 1 John chapter 4 verse 4, these evil teachers in this wicked world don't want us to find this greatness which is inside of us. They're always putting ways and means down to get us drifted from ourselves. And that is why they have designed the world in such a way that man, in all of his voyage of life, would move to and fro, go everywhere in this world, wanted to experience everything in this life. Wanted to go to space, wanted to go to moon, wanted to go to the depth of the sea, wanting to paraglide on the top, the highest mountain. But the only place man will never want to explore and experience is the death of himself, which is the reservoir of all the solutions and all the happiness man ever seek for. And the system has been created in such a manner that you would not have the opportunity to dive into yourself, to explore the world within. And it is intelligently, strategically, and tactfully implemented to make you who you are today. Only for one objective and for one reason, is to keep you ignorant so that they can keep controlling us. And we need to wake up from that slumber and that indoctrination. And that is why when you become enlightened, or when you begin to see the light of awakening and you begin to ask relevant questions, they brand you a recalcitrant, an outcast, or one who is thinking out of the box. Or they know they're putting everybody in a box and they want people to behave the way they want them to behave. So once you begin to think not in alignment with the way they want you to think, they said you are thinking out of the box. Or if you do it in a radical way, they see you as a recalcitrant and a rebellion. If you do it in a renaissance way, they describe you as being able to think out of the box. But if you do it in a radical way, they call you a recalcitrant and a troublemaker. All because you've realized the power within yourself. So there's much greatness inside of everybody that we have to find. And if we are to go to school, we have to go to school with one objective, and that is to uncover this greatness inside of us. If we have children, we must have one objective, and that is to help these children to unravel. First of all, to know that there's power within them, and second, to be able to unleash, to unravel, to uncover this greatness which is latent within them. We must understand that this whole universe is engulfed in magnetic energy, and that magnetic energy is what it was called the gravitational power, or the gravitational energy, because magnet pulls things to each other. That is why when you take anything, and then let's say you take this thing and you take it out and you leave it up, it has to come down. This pen, right, based on the law of magnetism, or the law of based on the gravitational law. So if there's no gravity here, or there's no magnetic pull here, this pen cannot write. That is why when they took our regular pen to space, it couldn't write. So they had to invent what's called the astronaut pen, just to be able to write it. Because in space, magnetic energy or the gravitational energy is not applicable. It's not there. That's why in space, things are constantly in flotation. You get everything. That is why plane, when it gets to certain frequency, they put up the engines, because it is within the range, what we call the range of weightlessness, where gravitational pull is not there. But within our Earth space, okay, everything is filled with gravitational energy. Everything is gravitating towards the gravitational pull, and everything has within itself the magnetic energy. And that is what we need to understand, including we human beings, which we harness the highest part of the magnetic field. Is that the problem we are having now is now people are being indoctrinated in the opening of the electrical energy field at the expense of the magnetic energy field. And all these spiritual teachers are not telling you that to be able to be very functional in this physical dimension, you need to actually activate your magnetic energy as to be able to function in this physical dimension. So everybody is pursuing, oh, I want to open my third eye. But this third eye is electrical field, okay, which is the energy through which, because magnet is produced through electricity. You understand? So in this world, if you want to live life purposefully, you must think of how to develop your magnetic field and align with the magnetic field of this universe. And our central nervous system is the physical muscle or limb structure through which the pituitary gland is able to generate energy in the magnetic field. So the pituitary gland controls our magnetic field, while the pineal gland controls our electrical field. So when you watch from where the pituitary gland is, the pineal gland is shorter to this place than so that means this side is the magnetic field, the down here is the magnetic field. So you need more magnetic energy. And that is why I always say that to function in this world, if you don't want to lose out on your balance, it is always best to operate from the heart center. Because here is where the balance is restored. Here we have equidistance from the electrical field and equidistance from the magnetic field. So here is where the energy of love and unconditional empathy is resided. So this is where we need to operate from. We are not supposed to operate from the base, and we're not supposed to operate from here. We need to operate from the heart center. And that is where we harness both the electrical and the magnetic energy. Now, but if you want to function very well, now we are talking about uncovering or being able to access the treasure of gifts that divinity has bestowed upon us. So obviously, we are not talking about spirituality here. We are talking about living a comfortable material life and being able to fulfill your mission in life. So if that is the case, then we are talking more of the magnetic field than the electrical field. So because if you want to be successful and you want to live a more life of contentment and tranquility whilst in this physical dimension, then you must activate your magnetic field. And the magnetic field is what we call the feminine energy. And the electrical field is what we call the masculine energy. Everything in creation is charged with this magnetic energy. Everything in creation is charged with this magnetic energy. Don't forget that. The stones, the trees, the animals, the minerals, at all levels of consciousness, because within this realm we have 4 levels of consciousness. We have the mineral consciousness, we have the plant consciousness, we have the animal consciousness, and then we have the human consciousness. All this level of consciousness is charged with this magnetic energy. As long as you are in this earth field, you are charged with this magnetic energy. Well, it is only the magnetic energy that makes us functional in this earth space. But in all of creation, or in all of creatures that exist within this magnetic field, it is we humans that we harness the highest percentage of this magnetic field energy. I repeat again, in all of creation and all entities within creation, it is humans that harnesses higher percentage of the magnetic energy. Now, every human being, I've put in down some few points here, that's why. Now, every human being is an embodiment of this magnetic force from head to toe. Every human being is an embodiment of this magnetic force from your crown to your toes. It's totally magnetic. And that is why you can, even when you have a comb, that comb, and you comb your hair and there's iron filings, where there are iron filings, small iron particles, and you use the comb to comb your hair, brush your hair, and then you put it on the iron filings, it's able to attract or magnetize the iron filings. This is not metaphysics, this is not mysticism, this is not personality development. This is hard science evidence. In science, we did this thing when we were in secondary school. This is an empirical, evidence-based scientific outcome. That when you comb your hair with comb, because our entire body from head to toe is fully magnetically charged, when you comb your hair and you send that comb to, and even the comb, the funny thing is that the comb is rubber. The comb is plastic. So how can plastic harness magnetic energy? And yet when you comb your hair and you send it there, it will magnetize the iron filings. That's after everything in this material dimension has some percentage of magnetic energy within them. And to be able to function within that space, you need to develop your magnetic field. So this is what happened. How come we lost this energy? How come we lost this energy? Because understanding these things will give you, now I'm trying to make you understand that there is power deposited in you, lying there latent, waiting to be explored for the greater good of yourself and the humanity at large. So the body is like a temple. We all know that the body is a temple. That's what the Bible says. It's said in the Bible that, don't you know that your body is the temple of the Lord? So the human body is a temple. So we have two types of temples that harnesses the magnetic field. Okay, we have the external temple, and then we have the internal temple. You have the external temple. So in the external temple, you may call it a church, you may call it a monastery, you may call it a synagogue, you may call it an ashram, whatever it is. That is the external temple. Now, this external temple harnesses some level of energy, and that is why people pay pilgrimage to these spiritual centers, or spiritual temples, or spiritual monasteries, or whatever you may give it, or spiritual synagogues. And then there is the internal temple, which is your body. There is the internal temple, which is your body, and the external temple, which is built by humans, and that also harnesses some level of energy. But the most authentic magnetic energy is the inner temple, or your body as the inner temple. Now, when we go to the churches, when we go to the temples, when we go to the monasteries does in themselves does not harness any magnetic energy to bring answers to our prayers and to give us grace and blessings or upliftment. It is not there. But the kind of energy, the kind of magnetic energy that you access in the temples are just a reflection of your own energy, which is in your inner temple. I don't know why you are getting my explanation. So, when you go to, let me use a church as a scenario. When you go to a church or a mosque or a monastery, the monastery as a physical structure harnesses no magnetic energy. Any magnetic energy you see in the mosque or the monastery or the temple or the church is a reflection of your own energy, or the collective energy of the individual souls that gather in that monastery. So whatever miracles, whatever wonders is happening in the church or the temple or the monastery or the mosque, it's your own creation. It has nothing to do with the physical mosque. So it is absolutely unreasonable and absolutely ignorance to go on a pilgrimage. When I say pilgrimage, I'm not talking about brother Muslims alone. The Christians go on pilgrimage to the Holy Land, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and all those places. Our brother Muslims also go on pilgrimage, and our brothers who are into this Hinduism also go to our Krishna headquarters in India and all those things. I have brothers who went to our Krishna headquarters in India lately. You understand? So we pay this homage and pilgrimage. But you see, at the time you pay this homage and pilgrimage, is the collective consciousness of reflected magnetic energy of several individuals that have gathered in that monastery, in that pilgrimage center, or in that temple, or in that church or synagogue. And it is this bits and pieces of this reflected magnetic energy that collectively is vibrating in that temple or monastery or church or the center of pilgrimage. And that is how come people receive their results.